All right, so I have all of my construction blocks. You're only going to have 6 of these. I went ahead and did all 8 just so I can kind of mess around with these pieces. But everything is in the same drawing. Everything's an inch and a half apart from each other. And I've also named them and colored them based on what they are. So I'm ready to do the actual assembly. So we're here in the part studio number 1. Notice I have a whole bunch of these because I was messing with those from previous years. To set up your assembly, you're going to go down to the little plus symbol right here. And you're going to hit create assembly. And that's going to open up a new little tab down on the bottom. So for you, hopefully it's assembly 1. For me, this is assembly 6. So we're going to put some of those parts in here that we're going to start to put together. So jump up here to insert and pick the parts that you have in the drawing that you created. I'm just going to pick a few random things. I'm going to pick an arch. Let's pick a cube and then, I don't know, tall triangular prism. Something like that. And we're going to say green check mark, we're okay. So the first thing that I do is, if you notice, you can grab all of these and kind of wiggle them around all over the place, which is not really a good thing. We want at least one of these things to be stuck in place. So I'm going to use this little arch as the basis. I'm going to right click it and go up to fix. And you'll notice that the fix symbol pops up by the arch. So what I do is, if I click and drag on that thing is not going anywhere. So this is like the basis of what we're building from. So now let's assemble these things together. So I think I'm going to go this green block. I'm just going to put kind of on the edge over here, and maybe I'll put this green prism over on this side. So up here we have all sorts of different mates or methods to connect these pieces. And for right now, while we're beginning, we're just going to stick with the fastened mate. And as you hover over these parts, notice how you get kind of this weird bullseye popping up. Imagine this is like a little dab of glue. And when we put that dab of glue on 2 different spots, it's going to hook those 2 places together. So let's say I want this block to square right up against the edge of this guy. So maybe I choose this corner as my dab of glue, but as I move around, it's doing a bunch of weird stuff and it's trying to get it at different angles. So if I want this to be straight up and down, maybe I just hover over here and drag to that spot until I get the glue that I want. So I want that corner, and then I'm going to hold down my right mouse button so I can see the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing right there. And you'll notice that it connects those 2 together right at that little dab of glue. I'm going to say, okay, I don't care about fasten 2. And I'm going to do the wiggle test. So if I wiggle it around and it moves, I knew I need another fasten, but this one is good to go. All right, let's try this guy right here. We're going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to grab the fasten mate one more time. And for right now, let's grab the middle of this guy. I don't know how this is going to look. I'm going to right click and move this around and connect these 2 together. This doesn't look good. So something weird is going on here. So there's some things that we can do. If it's not quite the right orientation that you want, if you go over to your fastened, I can flip the primary axis and I can flip the secondary axis, right? So if I click my primary axis, notice how it flips it in the other direction. If I wanted to rotate it any of these other ways, I can just kind of play with that until I get exactly what I want. So I have something that looks like this. Maybe I hit my check mark and go back to my isometric view. All right, so we've talked about fixing. So this guy is stuck in the same spot. We've talked about fastening, and you're only going to use the fasten mate for right now. We've talked about rotating the axis, so making sure that your orientation is good. One more thing, especially when you're working with that big old cylinder, it's going to be really hard to have it butt up against the edge because there's not a line surface on your cylinder. So another sneaky trick that we can do is maybe, and I know we could have done this earlier, but maybe I want this to be flush with the bottom right there. Another way around it is if I go to that mate right there, and I'm going to double click on that so I can edit it. If I click on offset, what that does is that will allow me to move my part in the X, the Y, or the Z direction. So it looks like I want my Y direction to kind of move down this way. So let's, this is definitely not going to be right. Let's do like a quarter of an inch and see what happens. So I'm going to type in 0.25 and hit enter. And it moved down a little bit too far. That's not too shabby. Now let's say I wanted it to go up though, to kind of line up with that other side. So maybe I go negative 0.25 and have that go up in the other direction. And that's not quite good enough. Let's try 0.125 and hit enter. Oh, that's looking pretty good. Now you probably have the actual dimensions, so you don't have to guess like I did. But this is just to kind of show what's going on. And notice that it matches up pretty nicely there. So you can kind of mess around with your positives and your negatives until you get the right value. Same thing with your rotating to try to get what you need. Especially your cylinder might be an absolute pain to do. So you'll probably have to use your offset from the middle to the outside until that looks good.